Welcome to the Relationship Cycle with Jorge and Nelsa, where we discuss dating and other significant relationships.
Buenas noches, señorita.
Hey, Poppy. It's good to hear your voice and glad to be back here with the relationship cycle with Jorge and Nelsa. Um, Ready for this new cycle of the new year, but these new topics we've got are hot, hot, hot. You think after a while you've talked about everything you can talk about with the relationship, right? And then boom, here we come with something fresh and new for you. So hit them with it, Poppy.
Well, tonight we're going to talk about the famous phrase, no, he's not my man or woman, we're just talking. What in the hell does that mean? Because to me, I remember using that in middle school and high school.
Right. That's exactly
Beyond
what I was
that,
going to say. Is that like go together?
beyond that, once I reached adult stage, that pretty much started to become an afterthought for me on a personal level. But I know that
Right.
it is something that a lot of people do identify with, and I think that depending on how you view dating as a whole is going to determine how you view the we're just talking phase. And of course, there's the feminine and masculine aspect of it where I feel, the females tend to kind of put more stock into it while men
Mhm.
tend to kind of, dismiss it as a more casual thing, at least from my personal experiences.
Well, and I always like to think of it as the investigation stage, right? To me, I guess, and maybe I have more of a liberal view of it as a modern woman. Like, I'm not going to give you wife energy if all we're doing is talking.
Oh, man. Damn, you gonna hit
Now,
us with that from the jump?
I'm going to come right on out there and tell you, boys, because that's a
Oh,
boy
man.
mentality to me. Like, if you don't want to put any more energy into this than talking, which to me says, okay, first of all, this is not a situationship. So we're not really, we're not having sex either. Um, and maybe we're not even going out very much. Maybe it's some texting, maybe it's some talking, maybe it's some FaceTiming.
FaceTiming.
Yeah, and that's okay. Like I honestly feel like as infantile as that phrase sounds from junior high, in high school, maybe we do need to reinstate it, but we need to actually do the talking. I just find it's so hard nowadays. Like going out, I went to a little ugly Christmas sweater party this past weekend in Charlotte.
Right.
And every time I go somewhere now, it's like, first of all, 75% women to 25% men. Of the 25% men, over half of those are with one of the women in the crowd. So they're already coupled up. So that's leaving like what, you know, 12.5% of the men eligible. And of those, I had two gentlemen, well, three gentlemen, because one I knew, he was a friend, and two who didn't, who were unknown,
Right.
actually eh, proceeded to make any kind of conversation with me. The first one, he just kind of made a joke about being a troll, and I had to pay a toll to get past him with my drinks. But, he was just trying to be a jokey joke, but
Sure.
that's all he did. Like, he didn't try to pursue me. He didn't say, "Oh, let me carry your drinks for you. What's your name? Where are you from? You're here alone."
Yeah,
He
the
didn't do
basic
any
stuff.
of that,
Yeah.
which I would have thought, like, you flirting, go and take it all the way, right?
Right.
The other gentleman, he did, it was his birthday, and he was in a celebratory mood. He looked like he had come with a lady, but maybe it was a cousin or a sister. I don't know, because he proceeded to get up. I was dancing by myself like I typically do with,
Or maybe they were just
some of my
talking. Wink,
girlfriends.
wink.
Right? But it was his birthday and I'm dancing by myself. And he was like, "Oh, come on now. Come on." He proceeds to dance with me. And I danced with him because I like that energy. I'm like, hey, at least he had the guts to step up and, you know, want to at least dance with me, if nothing else. And there was nothing else. He didn't ask for my number or He asked for my name, nothing. He was just enjoying his birthday dance, and that's all we did. But it
No,
was cool because at least I danced with somebody besides myself.
and
So,
I
and it's, you know,
and I think that it's it's important, right, to be aware of what are some of the things that you need to keep in mind while you're entering or in the middle of this talking stage. And I did a little homework,
mhm,
and there are some things that kind of caught my attention that I think, you know, it's not groundbreaking stuff, but it's stuff that you always want to keep on the forefront when you are talking and just, casually trying to gauge someone, just to see if, what comes of it, whether it
right,
be, hey, it's just a friend vibe or a romantic vibe or, whatever the case may be. But um, there's some bullet points that I want to hit regarding this topic. For example, um, one was establish your wants and time frame. That's important because you can only talk so much until you know you just run out of, almost like, hey, we're just going in circles and not getting anywhere,
that's
right?
right. I
And
agree.
also, when you're talking, right, as the conversation continues to evolve and continues to um, you know get more in depth, it's important, right, to figure out what you're wanting and what they're wanting, and also to be aware of the time frames,
Right.
because you can't talk to a person for 6 months. Like, to me, that feels like it's counterproductive
Mhm.
and not a healthy way of managing your time, because to me 6 months is a long time to just be talking to somebody.
Right, with no real destination in mind.
Right, agreed. And I'm sure there's one-off scenarios, like if you got somebody who maybe lives in a different country, or I don't know, California, and the schedules just don't align, or somebody who's in the armed forces, or somebody who's working overseas. And okay, I mean, you have your one-off scenario, sure, but in a general sense, you need to be aware of, okay, how much talking can we do, um, and no progress is being made. So be
Okay, so
aware
how
of
long is
that.
it for you, Poppy? You
Um,
personally, what's your cutoff if nothing is really going somewhere?
my
Let's say.
initial my initial reaction would be, 2 to 3 months. I think is probably about what I could handle.
Mhm.
Um, if it's somebody that I'm, genuinely interested in, or there's just a genuine, good vibe, or just somebody that appeals to me. I think 2 3 months is about all I could handle. Like, say for example, right, there's been scenarios like this where I've matched, with the woman who lived in Florida, right, but she's moving to Charlotte in a couple of months. And okay, like, she's telling me from the jump, like, look, I'm in Florida, I'm moving to Charlotte or Charlotte area for a job, or to be closer to family. So for now, I'm in Florida, but in a couple of months I'm going to be in Charlotte. Like, that would be a scenario
Mhm.
where I'm like, okay, that makes sense. She's moving here, and obviously, anybody that's moved, I mean, just moving locally is a hassle. Imagine moving to different states. So I understand that, and that makes a lot of sense to me. Um, but sometimes, this going with the flow, right, that we always
Mhm.
speak about, and you going with the flow and you just talking, and then you start getting comfortable, and you start to think that, okay, we're working towards something, when in reality he or she may think that, hey, we just talking still.
Right. That consistently updating is always, we talk about that all the time. It's like your phone, updates need to happen periodically. And you need to do check-ins, I think. And here's the thing I always say. If somebody is reluctant to check in with you and update the status of the situation or the relationship or the talking or whatever it is, all these terms for for relationships now. But,
Pick
if
one.
they don't wanna check in, like, that is your time to check out, I say. I've really started, holding a boundary with myself,
Right.
because I was really, just in a place of where I was just going along with whatever sometimes, I think, just trying to be a people pleaser. And now that I'm in recovery, praise God, I'm just like, that foolishness and nonsense is about to end. Like, you can't just drag a person along until you find something better. And I think that's what a lot of this talking leads to, and why, like, I'm not a proponent of it either past a couple months, because, we're grown. Like, in your 30s and 40s, especially your 40s and almost 50s and up, like, if you don't know what you're looking for by now, you need to go home and sit down and figure yourself out and quit wasting people's time, because, like, if you don't know what you want at this point, then you don't want anything. You're just out here messing. And who has time to be messy? I'm just like, that's just so, it is so junior high. Right,
No, I feel you
really.
because I think we've kind of touched on that too, right? Just with
Mhm.
like matching with on dating apps. And yeah, I'll have women say, "Oh, I don't know what I'm looking for, but I know what I'm not looking for." And I'm like, "Wait, what? Like, are you the Riddler? Like, that sounds
Right.
crazy to
That's
me."
not helpful.
So I'm like,
But
man, like
girl.
that in itself to me can be a red flag because I'm like, if you don't know what you want and you're 30 something years old, then you're
Right.
probably in the wrong app, or you're not
Or
looking
you need
for
to go to
anything.
counseling, you know?
Yeah.
You probably
Perhaps
need to
that
go.
too, or maybe there's some wounds that need to heal, or
That's what I'm
maybe
saying. Yeah.
there's a lot of moving parts to that. But I agree in the general sentiment that yeah, like if you don't know what you're looking for and you're on a dating app, then you
Mhm.
might want to check yourself or you wreck yourself. But um, establish your wants and be mindful of the time frame of how much you're willing to handle as it relates to the talking phase. Now, point number
Right.
two, um, breathe and grow together. And by that, what they were mentioning is basically that it's okay, to not talk every day or to not see each other every time or every week. That's okay, because you don't want to overwhelm somebody, especially in the talking stage. Like if you're hanging
Mhm.
out with each other every day and y'all just talking, that could have an adverse effect. So it's okay to, do your own thing and hang out with your friends and family, or, date other people because quote unquote, you're just talking anyways. So that don't mean a damn thing. And
Mhm.
I have a tough time believing that if a man is talking to a woman, I have a tough time believing that he's going to be like, nope, I'm talking to Susie. I ain't talking to nobody else.
Mm.
That just, from a man's perspective, let's just say that I haven't met a guy yet that goes with that approach. I'm sure they're out there, but not in my circle. I've never heard a guy say, "Well, I'm talking to Susie, so I can't talk to Pamela now that's at the bar here in front of me looking amazing."
Wow. Listen, and what I think, based on what your dating style is, like, I think that, like, some people are just, I'm only gonna do, one day at a time. I'm only gonna focus on one person at a time. While other people are, no, I'm seeing more than one person. I'm not putting all my eggs in one basket right now. And, like, you don't owe anybody, um, complete exclusivity, I think, in the talking phase. So why would you, in my opinion, give someone that? And then, in my opinion, I was always like, well, you've spent all that time with one person, and then boom, it doesn't work out. And now you got to start all the way over from the beginning. I like to think of it like a game of sorry. You can get more than one piece on the board, and you can move, as some pieces might go backwards, but you could still get to the home plate first, and you can still end up getting all your pieces into home before the other players on the board do, if you are moving all your pieces out, back to back. But if you just play one piece and get it all the way around before you start pulling out the other pieces from the board, then you've kind of wasted a lot of time, and everybody else is getting into sliding into home before you. So, maybe that's wrong, but that's my philosophy in dating right now, because it's just like, it's a time factor to it almost. And that's why I say, with that talking, that 2 months is about enough time, I think, to gauge, like, are you interested enough to say, okay, you're the one out of the pack that I want to see what happens with this. I want to take this further, and let's see how we develop. Because honestly, after a while, you might want to hone down, unless you're, ethically non-monogamous or something. But otherwise, you know, and then how do you know what a person has to offer? And this is my opinion again. So, don't beat up on the show. You beat up on Nelsa, but if you don't have a good sample size, like science experiments, then how do you know that somebody is interesting, or how do you gauge them if you have nothing to compare to? Does that make sense?
No, agree, because we're gonna say that, whenever I meet somebody new, I mean, I think this is almost like a human behavior type thing. Anytime you go somewhere fresh, somewhere new, or something that you don't do all the time, or something that you consider special, right? Like a gala, right? And
Mhm.
you're going to be meeting a bunch of new people. You always want to put your best foot forward, right?
Right.
Um, you know, so whenever you first meet somebody, it's that shiny new object, right? Which is cool, and it's a cool feeling, and it's pretty awesome, right? To kind of meet somebody new that has different life experiences, different views, different style, or just
Mhm.
just a different energy. But at the same time, you have to be careful not to see that person with your colored shades, because then at that point you could potentially miss a lot of red flags, because you only have your pink shades on, and everything's looking pink when it's actually red flags.
Right.
So um definitely have to be mindful of that the first time you meet somebody, yeah, it's going to feel cool, or even intrigued or enchanted. But you also got to remember that as people start getting more comfortable, you start seeing more sides of them, and really who they really are.
Mhm.
So just something to be aware of. Another thing that stood out to me was love bombing during the talking stage.
Ooh, we yes.
Because if you just met a man a week, and you just talked to him, you've talked to him for literally a handful of days, and he's already love bombing you, that could potentially be an issue. And
Very
don't
much
get me
so.
wrong. And listen, I like to, take out a woman. I like to, do nice things for a woman. But that to me is, it goes with time, right? Just like, you don't want to give all the, you don't want to give somebody the whole dinner on the first night. You want to be like, hey, you know what? As we grow and I start opening up to you, then yeah, that's a
Mhm.
natural thing, right? It should be a natural progression, as the chemistry grows and the rapport and all that good stuff. Same concept to me, that yeah, if a guy on the first couple of dates is already spoiling you, that's potentially a red flag, because that could be considered a form of long love bombing.
Right. And that did happen to me in a previous relationship.
Mm.
And I was, of course, not in a very healthy place, and fell for that. And but it didn't take long. I usually have my own internal clock for being able to sniff out who's sincere. But I guess there's a part of me that's genuinely a romantic and wants to feel like you can have love at first sight, but then there has to be something that anchors it. And so after a few months, something's off here. Like you haven't moved past certain things, saying certain things, you're only doing certain things. There's certain things that I wanted to see happen that needed to be cleaned up, so to speak, in this person's life, things that they said were issues, but they never moved on those issues. And so I was just like, you're all talk. So I kinda started moving out and withdrawing, because it was like, "No, this is not love at first sight. This is, you're very needy and you want somebody to take care of you." And there
Mm.
are women who will fall for that, wanting to be loved. I had enough people in my life who loved me, and I knew what love really should feel like in terms of, relationships, not just with a man. It's so important when you're dating that you have good relationships with other people, loving relationships, so that way you don't put all your whole self into just this one, and you feel like, if I don't have the love of a man or a woman, then I don't have love, in that type of way. And so I was able to really kind of extricate myself from it, because it was so unhealthy. And it was a little scary by the end because it was more like an obsession than it was love. And so I say just be very careful with that, everybody, because men, it can happen for you too. Women can
Oh,
love
I've seen
bomb
it.
as well, you know?
Oh, I've absolutely have seen women that try to love bomb as well, and it almost
Mhm.
just seems like you're almost trying to woo a man by buying him nice things,
Yeah.
or I've seen where a woman that barely knew a man and she was already like buying stuff for her house that appeased him.
Right. Cooking for him with all his favorites and taking lunch and it's some real it's some there's some things to look for and that quickly and I'm having to ask myself when I see that now is, but you don't really know me. Like, what do you love about me? And those are the questions that I started asking this person. I was like, so what do you love about me? What is it that you have fallen for? Why do you want to spend more time with me? Uh, you know, and it was like he really never could answer those questions with any real specifics. It was always vague in general. And so for me, that was like, nope, nope, nope. Let's get to pulling out of this situation because this is not a good, healthy type of connection. And I knew it was time to go. So and like you said, in the talking stage, like the first week, like that's kind of mm, I
Yeah, I
don't
mean, it's
know about
definitely something.
that.
I mean, yeah, I'm sure it feels nice, right, when you get a nice gift, but then you got to ask yourself, I just met this man like a week ago.
Right.
Like, it almost seems like one of those too good to be true type scenarios. So just, something to be aware of, man or woman, because like we said, right, women can love bomb too. And not to say, right, that you can't do something nice or a nice gesture, right, as you start to grow together, start to get that rapport and start to learn about each other. But without barely knowing someone and you're already getting like these lavish gifts, that you want to monitor that. Another thing that stood out was problem solving skills.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever you're talking to someone and kind of getting to know them, pay attention to how they cope with problem solving skills, because apparently that is a preview of how this person or individual is going to conduct themselves when you
Mm-hmm.
do have a problem or conflict.
Yes. See how they treat the
Because
waiters at the restaurant too.
think about it, like, right, and it kind of goes hand in hand, right, with, have you when you see a man, how a man treats his mother, that's a reflection of what you're going to be looking for, right? There's
Mm-hmm.
exceptions, but I would say the rule of thumb, right? You see a man that treats his mom with respect and high regard, then that's a good sign, right?
Right.
You see a man that like says all kind of crazy stuff about his mom, or something to be
Mm-hmm.
mindful of. And
Right. And like you said too, with that problem solving skills, like a person who gets very anxious or, gets very angry over small details, not just like bad traffic in Charlotte, but, you know, something minor, the waitress didn't bring, the right packet of sauce or, the wrong order or something, and they just flip immediately. Like to me, again, those are telltale signs of something that's down up under there that you're gonna be getting more of, because if people let those peak at the first week when you're just in that talking stage, once they get comfortable with you, what do you think they're gonna do? I'm
yeah,
like,
and let's be
"Yeesh."
honest, like, with dating, relationships, just people in general, you're going to have disagreements. You're not going to always be eye to eye on certain things, right? And that's
Mhm.
okay. But the focus is, okay, how do we get to, some common ground and resolution? And I think that is the important part to take away. But ladies, gents, always keep in mind, how is this person with problem solving skills? Because you're going to run
Yeah.
into situations where somebody's got to, find some middle ground. And you're going to run into situations where you disagree on things or make you feel some kind of way. And you want to be able to sit down and maturely have a discussion or handle the problem.
Well, let me ask you this. One of the things that I ran across from it's a dating coach, John Keegan, he talks about um, values and looking at how your values and the other person's line up. So, how do you introduce that in the talking stage, Poppy, for you personally?
Well, first and foremost, for me, I think the talking stage is a component, right? To me, I see it
Mm-hmm.
as it's a piece of the pyramid, so to speak, right? That's like
Mm-hmm.
the initial stages. But to me, I've had great conversation, great, FaceTime conversations with the woman, and then in person, it just doesn't feel like a good fit, whether it be because of
Mm-hmm.
the lack of attraction or just different views on life or religious, political affiliations, all that stuff. So to me, even if we are talking well, or even if we are attracted to each other, I'm more focused on the in-person energy and interaction and vibe. To me,
Mm-hmm.
that's going to be the end all be all when it's all said and done, even though you have to talk and get to that, point of meeting, right? But um it's something to be aware that even if the talking phase is going well, you still need to be aware that, hey, I haven't met this man or woman. So things could, not work out.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always important to keep those expectations tempered and just be aware that, hey, we've had great conversation up to this point, but we'll see how this goes in person. Hopefully it goes well. But you also need to be mindful that it may not.
Listen, I think that's it for me too. Like, I feel like I've become much more open about letting somebody know where I stand and, what's important to me. And I think that level of honesty is important because, again, it's about valuing your own time and then, being respectful of the other person. Like, it's no point in pretending that you're into something, even if it's something as simple as hiking or camping. Or I'm gonna tell you, if you don't have an RV or we're not staying at the lodge, I am not gonna be outside in a sleeping bag. Not gonna be doing it. I did that in junior high and I left that life behind. So, if you don't have an enclosed space for me to be camping with you, I will not be doing it. But but sometimes people pretend that they're into things that they're really not. And that can really skew how the relationship goes when you're masking what your true values are, or pretending that you're good with go with the flow situationship when secretly you are all about commitment and really want somebody who is digging you like you're digging them, but you're trying to go along with the flow because you got your heart set on somebody who really is not about commitment. They're about, freedom, and I want to do my own thing, or I just want to be a butterfly and, you know, s settle with all the flowers. So, I think that's so important in that talking stage to get
Oh,
those things out and about.
absolutely. And it's important, right, to ask the right questions, right, and to have the right discussions to kind of, set the proper expectations, right. And listen, let's be
Mhm.
honest, right. Not every time you meet a man or woman, it's gonna be for happily ever after. Sometimes it could just be a friendship thing, could be a casual thing, or whatever you want to label it. So it's important to just be honest with your intention, so that way you don't take that right away from the person to make their own personal choice as to how they want to go about it.
And I have a
So
friend who says sometimes it's just moments. Sometimes we've made relationships out of what were really truly only good moments,
ooh,
you know?
man, that's deep.
Mhm. And
Oh
just because we had
man.
a good moment doesn't mean we're gonna have a great relationship.
Listen, sometimes I see it as, listen, sometimes it's just gonna be a chapter of your life. They're not gonna be the whole book.
Right there. There it is.
Some people are just meant to be a chapter and be like, you know what, it was fun. You're, the bad boy experience that I had, but I got to move on now because, you married to the
Mhm.
streets and I can't be about that life. You can say
That
you
is not
tried it
part of my
once.
value system, sir.
But yeah, these are all like little things that are good to be aware. another thing, right, to kind of keep in mind, and these were all little bullet points that I kind of,
Mhm.
documented as I was kind of doing some digging on this topic because it is interesting.
Mhm.
But one that doesn't get talked about enough, in my opinion, at least, I don't know, in the internet or news or dating coaches for whatever reason, it just doesn't seem to be a thing. But it's definitely something, and something that at least to be aware. But to take a page from that video you sent me the other day where the therapist was telling that woman stop trying to change the menu. You remember that?
Mhm. Yes, Doc always
So
lays it down. Yes.
when you're talking to somebody, when you're in the early stages of getting to know somebody, stop trying to change the menu. And by that we mean that if you meet somebody and you see that maybe they're not a good fit, or maybe they drink too much, or maybe they smoke too much for you, then you need to be mindful that, you know what, this is probably not going to be a good fit for me. Because if
Right.
you're forcing somebody to stop drinking, or you're trying to force somebody to stop smoking cigarettes for your, you know, appeasement,
Right.
then you need to be aware that, you know what, this is going to be a struggle, or this is just going to be too difficult. Now, if that person is the one initiating the change and they want your support, then okay, then that changes the dynamic as far as that goes.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that thing really kind of hit me too because I was like, how many times did I create a story in my head about somebody and what I thought was happening versus what the reality was and what they were really saying to me? Like not hearing I enjoy spending time with you, not as I really dig you. You're the person for me. I think you're the one for me. There's so many times where it's like we just like we put a whole nother script on top of what the person has said and elevate it to something that it really isn't. And or that's what you want them to say. That's what you want them to hear, like Doc was saying on the post. And that's not what they're saying to you at all. And you're upset because that's not what they want to say to you either. It's just like I've done that so many times. I just like, sometimes I think I feel like I need to take an ad out in the paper and just, do a blanket apology to all the people who've come in my life and left. It was like, you know, I know that I probably did some of these things when you were in my life, and I just want to say sorry and good
But you know
luck.
what? Hey, live and learn. Like, listen,
Absolutely.
we're all gonna make mistakes. Even when we're old, everybody's gonna screw up and slip up. But the important thing is to
Hmm.
learn and evolve and realize that, you know
Yes.
what, I'm okay with, like I say, and we've talked about this. I'm cool with making new mistakes. It's making the same mistake and tripping over that same rock over and over again. Where I'm like, yeah, that you got to handle, you got to address, whether it be
Hmm.
counseling, therapy, or spiritual stuff, whatever you got to do
Yeah.
to figure that out. You have to break that cycle, because obviously then at that point we're talking about the whole insanity thing. But I do want to say this, at least from my perspective, and I'd like to be abundantly clear with women as I start to approach that talking phase and to that whole getting to know each other. I'm very direct and say, look, until we have had a conversation of exclusivity, you need to assume that there's other chefs in the kitchen, just like I'm going to assume that there's other chefs in the kitchen. So I tell my ladies all the time, my female friends, I tell them, look, you need to stop giving people treatment. You need to stop giving that boyfriend treatment that don't want
Hmm.
the boyfriend responsibilities.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I say, I tell my daughters, like you should not be giving wife treatment um to somebody who is not even your boyfriend, who is not even, he's not even exclusive for you. Like and stop. You don't have a my mom used to be all the time. I don't see no ring on your finger, you know.
Didn't Beyonce make a song about that? Put a ring
Yeah,
on it or something?
put a
Was it
ring on it,
Beyonce? Who was
right?
it?
And that's the thing. It's just like, until you get a real specific commitment. And when I say specific, I mean like y'all both know what page you're on. Like it's not this sometime in the future we're going to do this. No, what are we doing right now? Like what are we doing right now? And it just kind of and when they say like we're just enjoying our time together. Okay, that's your signal that that's all they're doing. And so don't get yourself all caught up in your feelings about it being something very serious because they're telling you without telling you that this is not the be all end all for them at this time. Maybe it could be, but it isn't currently. And if that's what you're looking for, then you need to keep looking and don't get stuck right there when you should have been passing through. Like, who was the pastor's name? He was like, there's some of y'all that go through levels and you stop in a space where you should have kept passing through.
Oh man.
And if they're still moving and grooving and you meet them where you're supposed to be when you finally, land at your spot, then fine. But if not, he was like, some of y'all should have been saying, I'll see y'all on, in a little bit, but I got some other stuff I need to do right now and keep it pushing. Because you settled someplace that you were never meant to settle in. And that was not your territory. That was not your place.
As they
So,
say, there's levels to this shit. But I want to bring up
yeah.
a point because I've had this conversation before about the we're just talking stage. And
Mhm.
a lot of women have told me this, and they're like, well, the issue is that even in the talking phase, right, men will say whatever they think you want to hear so that they can get what they want. And my approach to that is, look, I get it, it happens, and definitely not oblivious to it. It is something that does happen in society and all walks of life. However, I literally looked her in the eyes and I said, look, you need to see and hear the words that he is telling you and then compare that to the actions that are
Mhm.
coming with those words or lack of action. If those two things align and they're consistent and there is there's a way of connecting those two, the words with the action, then okay, maybe there is something there. If you notice that the words are one thing and the actions are not matching them, then that's all you need to know. And that's all you need to see
Mhm.
to walk away.
That's it. If
It's
things
really
don't
that simple. When
align,
you break it down, if I tell you, Nelsa, I'm going to cook and make dinner at 7 o'clock, come hungry and come ready. And then you show up and I'm like, hey, by the way, I'm not cooking anymore. That right there is going to create a level of
mhm.
distrust because I'm literally lying to you, even though it's a small lie, right?
No, that's a
But
big lie. You know how I enjoy your cooking. That's a huge lie. I'm gonna
but
be
that would
mad
be
as
an
hell.
example, right? Where you're coming in and you're like, all right, we about to eat good, we about to knock out this podcast, and I'm gonna enjoy a
Right?
nice home cooked meal. And then you show up and I'm like, oh, by the way, I went to Jack in the Box. Never mind, I wasn't gonna cook. And you're gonna be like,
Uh-uh.
wait a minute
Uh-uh.
now, you playing with my intelligence and my emotions
It's about to be some hands drawn somewhere.
now.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But
Oh man,
yes, but that's the truth
toxic.
though. And you got to look at the little things, not just it's not always in the big things, but how often do those little things in talking stages, how often does the how often do they pull the plug on you? How often do they show up? This is one of the things that some girlfriends of mine and I've been talking about how, some men talk about how they want to be your protector and they want to be the man you can depend on and they want to do this and do that. But then like you going through something maybe in your family, they don't check in, they don't call to ask how's it going with your family member or whatever the situation was. You're doing all the driving to go see them, but they don't ever send you any gas money. They don't, feed you when you do finally make it in to see each other or whatever. I'm not saying that that's a have to, but don't tell me you want to play such a main important role in my life, that love bombing mess, and then you don't ever do anything that speaks to the energy I'm giving you. Like
Mm,
you telling me this stuff to get things out of me, but then you don't return and reciprocate the energy and you don't follow through with your words. Like your words don't add up, like you said, to the action. But it happens in that talking stage, if you ask me. How often does what the person says equal an action?
Yeah, and even something small, right? If he says, "Hey,
Mm-hmm.
I made reservations. I'm picking you up. Be ready
Right.
at 8:30," and he shows up at 9:30, 10 o'clock, that in itself is
Mm-hmm.
that's a concern, right? Especially early on. Like you got to be on your A game early on with stuff like that. So if you're already running into those issues early on, what do you think's going to happen as the person gets more comfortable and really starts to just
Mm-hmm.
show themselves and show their ass, for lack of a better
That
phrase.
part.
So with
Very
that being
accurate.
said,
Very accurate.
guys, listeners, as always, we appreciate your support, your feedback,
Yes.
and we love when you guys chime in. Please follow us on the YouTube channel at The Relationship Cycle with Jorge and Elsa. Give us likes, give us comments. Feel free to comment on potential future podcasts that we can, discuss or maybe, pursue from a different angle. Since even some of these topics, there's various angles and spectrums to pursue it.
Mm-hmm.
But as always, we thank the support, and we're looking forward to a brand new year of more podcasts and more interesting conversations.
Absolutely, Poppy. Thanks, everybody.
And shout out to Microhound for supporting us and helping us with our website. And again, guys, please subscribe. It's free. And obviously, it motivates us to continue to push this project and to do the research, have the discussions, and give you guys some fresh perspective from me and Nelsa.
Absolutely. Until next time, everybody.
Buenas noches and happy holidays, everybody. Thanks for joining us today on The Relationship Cycle with Jorge and Nelsa. Do you have show ideas? Email us at jorgeandnelsa@gmail.com. Follow us on Spotify or anchor.fm for more great shows.